Well, I'm just going to be. Well, I'll start in a minute. I'm not going to get started yet. I'll wait and see if a few followers, a few people want to join me. So, hope everyone's doing all right. It's nice and sunny today. I'm using a new computer, well, new for streaming, and it seems to be going okay. Went okay for the morning, I think. But I'm still not sure. I'm not sure about a few things. Oh, hello. Good afternoon. I'm checking out the settings on this setup here to make sure that it's good. The bitrate looks okay at the moment, but let me know if it gets laggy. I ran into an issue this morning where it got laggy, and I think I've adjusted it now, so it should be okay. But let me know if it's not. All right. Well, so today I'm going to be working through this tutorial. This is a tutorial that well, not even really a pre-written tutorial. This is just a set of things I'm going to be figuring out here and showing you how to do. And you've got a link to this notebook in Discord, so you're welcome to use this notebook for your own corpus analysis if you find it useful. Sonic Pi. I'm curious about that. Alyssa, tell me, chat. Let's try to chat in the Discord if we can, just so that it's easier to have a record of it later. But I'm curious about what Sonic Pi is. It sounds like a Raspberry Pi version. You know, usually with Raspberry Pi stuff, you can get like a specific like OS that's customized for whatever purpose, and then you just install that OS instead of Raspbian or whatever the other default OSs are. Like if you want to do the use a if you want to use a Raspberry Pi as an arcade system, there's a package called RetroPie that I have one of those set up. It works okay. Yeah. Certainly sounds interesting. So, yeah, oh, okay. Code to music conversion. Oh, interesting. So, like MIDI? I'm kind of curious what that is. I've heard of, I mean, basically anything that you can express systematically, you could encode into music and then hear it. And so there's pretty interesting projects like that, like working with Wikipedia edits or working with, I had a student many years ago who he logged all of his keystrokes for a certain amount of time and then turned that into music. So while he was playing a game, it sounded all like harmonically consistent because it was him using the WASD keys to navigate and play around the game, and then so it sounded that way whenever you heard it later on. It's a pretty interesting project. Well, 5 viewers, so hopefully those of you who are here are interested in learning some things. I'm going to be working through this Python notebook that you see here and that I've shared here. Let me just double check the layout. Yeah, okay, so hopefully this is clear enough and you can follow it. Again, you're welcome to just view the notebook yourself and then copy the code out of it to use it for your own situation. So I'll explain a little bit about how I set this up and then sort of proceed through some examples. And I think this is where many of you are right now, where you've got a corpus. And so what we're trying to do is figure out the things that you want to know about that corpus. And some of those things might be very straightforward, and so we can write some code that'll do that. Others might be a little bit more nuanced, but that's going to be something where TextBlob can really help us. So what we're doing right now, this is called feature extraction. So we're trying to figure out what are the features here. Later we'll decide which ones are significant, but at this point we're trying to just figure out what can we measure, and then let's capture all that, let's record it in that spreadsheet, and then we can start looking for patterns as we start building that. I know, Alexandra, you're working on this stage. I don't know if you're watching right now, but you were kind of at this stage with yours, and I thought it might be useful to look at a way to extend the kinds of things that you can extract with the methods we've got so far by adding in TextBlob. So let me show you what I've got so far. Excuse me. So I'm setting up this notebook kind of like I did the other one, where there's a preamble up here. This section is about importing modules and libraries. So as I learn that I need a certain module or library, I'm going to come up here to import it. And then this is the cell that I will always run first before I do anything else in this if I have to restart this and come back later. Then any general purpose functions that I find myself needing to do, I'm going to stick in here. And in general, think of a function like whenever you need to do something more than once, it's usually a good idea to write a function. So there's a truism or an axiom of programming that good programmers are lazy. So you should, a function lets you write something once and then do it over and over again. So that's a kind of laziness, but it's a good kind of laziness. So this is the one that I've got so far, which is just that basic step of getting all of the file paths from my folder and then returning a list of those. Hey, I'm in the middle of a class. Okay. I'll see you later. So because that was something that I found myself doing it over and over again, I thought it'd be easier to just write that once and let that run. So here's what I've got. So I went through, I was interested in some more things about G.K. Chesterton because that's the author I picked kind of randomly. And this is the spreadsheet that I've got so far of 21 of his works. And I just got these by going on Project Gutenberg and looking at these are the first 25 or so. Some of these are actually not him, and there's a couple of duplicates. So I ended up with 21 of these. There are quite a bit more. He was a very prolific writer, and a lot of these are here, in Project Gutenberg. You can find his full bibliography on Wikipedia, which is what I used to double check the dates. Because some of those dates, when you look at the ebook, it's the date that it was published in that particular edition, or that it was, in many cases they don't have dates at all. So I went to Wikipedia to verify the publication dates of all of these 21 books that I have here. And so far in this spreadsheet, I just have the file path, the title, and the year it was published. As I was collecting these, I noticed Chesterton writes primarily in 3 genres. He does fiction, poetry, and essays. And so, and then within fiction, he does short fiction and novels. So I made a column for genre because I feel like that might be important later. Like that might be something that after I spend some time with the data and I start looking at different kinds of features, I might notice that whenever he's writing fiction, he writes a certain way. Whenever he's writing poetry, he writes a different way. I mean, I would expect that. So that's something that if my numbers start to look that way, then I will have a way to verify that and keep track of it. So let me see. Keep my Discord window open. Okay, so all those files are uploaded here in my Google Drive, the same folder I was using before, but a lot more in here. I've also put my metadata spreadsheet in here, and that's okay because whenever I'm writing my code, whenever I wrote that function is only looking for text files. That's what the star.txt part of the glob does. It just matches the pattern there where every file that ends in .text is going to get matched and returned as a list. And this is going to be returning it not actually as a list, but as a dictionary, just to kind of save me a little bit of time later on. So let me show you what this is. If I run this function, shift enter to run that function definition. Now I have this function called getPaths, and let me just do a quick little demo cell of that. If I run getPaths and then print, so I saved that as the variable name pp. I don't know why. This is what it ends up looking like, and so it's actually just the file name as sort of the entry in the dictionary, and then in the contents it's the full path name. This will just make it easier later for me to print it out, and that's being accomplished by this part here, the os.path.basename, which is kind of wonky and hard to remember. So I just did it once, so now I don't have to do it every time I want to make a loop. So that's what it's going to give me. That's where the output's going to be structured later on. So I got started a little bit on this just to make sure that the basic workflow made sense, and so I can show you what I've got so far. But I would recommend, if you'd like to try this, copy and paste this cell. This counting character cell is the most generic one, and the idea here is that I'm going to run through several different versions of this and get several different, each time I'm going to get a different feature for whatever I'm interested in. And whatever I'm interested in, I can do right here. In this case, on line 7 of that cell, I'm counting the length of the text, which is just going to be the characters. And so that's all I'm going to get in this case. All right, so if I run this, the first bit of it is going to get those paths like I just demonstrated up here. And then the rest of this cell is just a for loop that's going to go through each of those paths, do something to each of those files, and then print the results. So let me just run that cell. There we go. Now, there's something special about the way that I've printed these. Let me show you what's useful about this. In this little line 9, what I'm doing is fn is the temporary name or the variable name that I gave for that path. So remember, that's the short, just the file name itself. And then I'm adding a plus sign to show concatenation. And then I'm adding \t. \t means a tab character. And you see those here. Like there, you know, in between the text here and the number. And then the last thing I'm doing is I'm printing that number, the integer of whatever length I've calculated, as a string to make sure that it is printable. Now, once I do that, watch what happens. I can actually select all this, copy that, and then over here on my spreadsheet, if I make sure I'm on the first cell, or first row, hit paste. Yes, I know. Okay, well, I have to do Control V, but there it is. This has now printed all those numbers. Oops, it didn't print right. Oh, come on. I was hoping that would print. I was hoping that would print in separate columns. It did earlier, but what did I do differently? This is annoying. Okay, so I can fix that. But it's I was hoping that it would print in separate columns so that I could easily then treat those numbers as their own column. Let me try something. So sometimes this doesn't work, but that's all right. I'm on a new computer that I haven't used for a while, so I need to find out if I have Sublime on here. I do not seem to have Sublime text on here. Nope, I don't. This is a Linux computer that I have not used for a little while, so I don't remember what all I've got on it. But let me try the basic text editor. All right, so I need to figure something out, but while I'm doing this, let me know if you have questions about your specific projects. There it goes. Okay, oh, it's weird that I had to do that way. Okay, I'll show you what I did, but if you have any issues with your specific projects, please let me know so I can try to work on those things or help figure out a tutorial to do for Wednesday. So I don't know why I had to do this, but I went into, let's see, I don't have my OBS set up this way, but I went into just a plain text editor, and then I pasted the same thing I copied from here in that, and then I copied that into the spreadsheet. I don't know why I had to do that twice. I can't think of any difference, but because it's literally just a tab character both times. But in any case, the reason that I wanted to print those as separate columns is that I don't actually need to keep this column, what's column E right now, but what I can do with this is verify that the number I'm seeing in column F actually goes with the file that I wanted to in column A. So I can kind of go down the list here and make sure, yeah, Chesterton Thursday, Trifles, Wisdom Brown, and so on. Yeah, those all look good. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that column and make a word count or a character count column. Now I can move these just into that column. And now these are numbers, so I could actually sort with these or do other things like graph these numbers, and that might be interesting. Probably not interesting yet because this is just the number of letters in it. Also, by the way, I didn't bother cleaning out the metadata for these files themselves, like the headers. So, you know, that's going to throw off my numbers a little bit overall, but shouldn't be too bad. Okay, so moving on, I'm going to do some other things. So this cell right here, I was, again, running through each file and just counting the characters. So I'm going to copy this code and make a new text cell. I'll do sentences here in a little bit. I'm gonna do words next. So this is the same code so far, but I'm gonna make a few changes here. I wanna change the comments so that I can remember what this one is actually doing differently. And instead of counting just the length of the text, this is where I'm going to count the length of the text split on space characters. Or if I leave that blank, it should also count that on space characters, but we'll see. And make sure that the number it gives me makes sense. Okay, again, these look pretty good. I'll do that same little thing to copy these into their own cells. Let's do that thing again. Okay, well, I mean, I know how to fix it, but it's weird. So do this little switcheroo and just kind of verify again. These all look like, I'm just visually checking to make sure these all line up, and it looks like they do. So here we go. These are all pretty rough numbers. These aren't super reliable numbers, but they're pretty good. Okay. So there's my word count. So there's probably other things that I could do just pretty directly like this, like count the file size or various other things like that. I could probably find the longest words. I could probably do the TF-IDF thing to figure out what the most unusual words are, just using some statistical things. But I want to show you what you can do with TextBlob, because TextBlob can do quite a lot of those things for us, and some more sophisticated things than what Voyant tools can do. So let's count the number of sentences in this. Sentences are recognized through punctuation, right? So you have a group of words and then you have a period at the end. And you could write your own code to do that, but TextBlob has already figured that out. And this kind of wonky. There's different situations. You might have line breaks, you might not. You might have, you'd have to check for periods and question marks and exclamation points. So just to keep it simple, let's just use what TextBlob has already figured out about how to do that. So let me show you how to do this. So here I'm doing the same thing I did before. I get a dictionary of paths. I open each of them and then save each of those as something called text. But now I do something different. Now I use TextBlob to convert those into blobs, which is a special kind of data object. And then Blob has this .sentences method on it, which is a list of all of the sentences in that blob. And so if I count the length of that list of sentences, that'll tell me how many sentences there are, right? So I'm going to run this code. This is going to probably work for me, but you will probably get an error if you're running this by yourself for the first time. And the error that you get is fixable. It's going to tell you that it's missing some things that it needs to download. And so these two lines here, importing NLTK and then using NLTK to download the punched corpora, that's what you need to do. And so I just went ahead and did this in my importing modules thing. If you ran this first already with lines 4 and 5 just like that, then you probably did not get this error at the end. And so now I have a list of all of the sentences in this. Where was I? Oh yeah, got to do this little bit here. And drop this into my corpus. And metadata. Okay. So now we can do a few more things. We might want to know what is the average words per sentence or average sentence length here. Well, we could get that pretty well actually by dividing the word count by the number of sentences. Since I'm in a spreadsheet, I could do that here. I'll show you how to do it in Python, but spreadsheets can do a lot of these things for us too. We just have to do a little math in the spreadsheet. If you do an equal sign, then and in parentheses you create a mathematical expression here. It should just calculate it for us. And what we want to know is the value in F2 divided by G2, and it gives us this number 21.8. So that's the average number of words in each of those sentences. And the way that the spreadsheet works, if I copy that cell and then paste it down here, it'll automatically interpolate both of the field values for each of those. You can also just select and then drag that down like that, and that'll automatically fill in that value for each of those. So I'll say average sentence length here. And these are decimals. They're pretty long numbers, but that's okay. It shows us, you can actually see quite a range of variety now, actually. The word count in the sentences, those are not as interesting to me on their own because those are, different genres have different length expectations, and, just he may have had more to say in one book than another. That doesn't tell us much about how Chesterton actually writes or how his writing may have changed for different genres or over time. But the average sentence length does start to give us a sense of style, and that's pretty interesting. Now I'll show you how to do this with Python. This will also let me double check that what I did here and what I can do in Python, they should give me the same or very similar number. So let's see if we can figure this out. Okay, so is everyone doing all right? If you're struggling or you have questions, please ask. I feel like I'm losing viewers. I'm down to 5, so hopefully those of you who are here are still benefiting from this. I'll do sentence count, and then I'll do part of speech extraction, and then sentiment analysis. Those would be the things I do here. Okay. So this is counting sentences. Let's make a copy of this cell to do something similar. So calculate average sentence length. Okay, so we're going to still need the same thing of sentences. So we'll do changing the variables around a little bit here. I'm going to call this the sentence count. I'm also going to need the word count, so let me do the same thing I did up here to count the words. I mean, you can actually use TextBlob to count the words. Let's do that, actually, just to make sure. So count words, let's say that's going to be the length. I think it's just words in TextBlob. Let me just make sure. Now TextBlob's word count is going to be more precise than the one that I did earlier, so that number will probably be off a little bit from what I found earlier, but should be the same. The average should be roughly the same. So this is going to print out, if it works, it's going to print out the number of sentences followed by the number of words, which is still not what I'm interested in for this cell. That's the error that Alexandra was getting. I don't know what that means. History logging moves to new session 59. What does that mean? What is that? Okay, let me try it. I'm gonna try this. I'll try to run this again and see if I get that error again. Like, where is session 59? Like, what does that mean? All right, well, so we got some numbers here. So we've got 2,878 sentences, 63,221 words. Is that roughly what I thought? Yeah, I mean, it's close. The word count here is pretty close. There might be differences in what it considers a word, like Mr. It might not consider that a word. It should, but it may not, depending on how it's counting. Or my code may have accidentally omitted that kind of thing. So yeah, this just kind of verifies that we have basically the same thing. I don't know what the session 59 is. Okay, so average, I'm really just interested in the average sentence length, so I'll make a variable called average sentence length, and then I will do the math like I did before. So that's going to be the count sentences divided by count words. And I'm okay with decimals here because I think these are going to be numbers that are pretty close to each other. And I want to make sure to capture some very small differences like that. There we go. So this will take it, oops, what am I missing? Oh, yeah. There it is again, but now it's going to a new session 60. Like what? I don't know. Wait, did I do this backwards? I did it backwards. That's why the numbers are not the same. You gotta divide the sentences into the words like that. So this should give me, there we go, that's what I was expecting. So these numbers are very similar to what I got before, but they're slightly different. So I'm going to keep them both. And add them here as columns. And that way I can compare, I can kind of keep track of this in terms of which thing I did and compare and contrast later on, just in case I need to explain something. I want to have as much information as I can possibly have. Okay, so kind of going down the list here, you can see some of these are very close, some of these are a little bit less close, but generally they're in the ballpark with each other, and that's what I wanted. Okay, great. So let's figure some things out. Now, if you have any requests while I'm here, please, this would be a good time to get it in, like in terms of what TextBlob can do. So I'm going to do a couple more things that I'm interested in for this work, but yeah, of course, I want to see what you're interested in. So one of the things TextBlob is great at is identifying parts of speech. So it takes a little bit more code, but it's not too bad. I'm going to go ahead and make another code cell here. Let me grab my most generic one. Or no, I'll get this one. And I'm going to deal with parts of speech. I'm going to calculate noun density. So this is the percentage of words in each of these texts that's a noun. I don't know if that's interesting, but I'll do it and then see what number I get, and maybe it'll be interesting. So now I've got the, so these are, so yeah, okay. So the blob here is, blob.words is a list of all of the words that appear in each text as I'm running through it. Blob.words has, well, actually, no, the one I want is not words, but tags, because tags is going to be the part of speech tags, and it's a list of every word keyed to that. Yeah, each is going to be a list of every word in the text, but that list will be actually a pair of things. It's going to be the word and then what part of speech it thinks it is. So if I wanted to do that, I can iterate through those with this here. I think this is right. I haven't done this for a while, but I'm going for word, comma, POS for parts of speech. I'm going to go through each tag pair, and then I'm going to do some things based on what the part of speech is. And this is kind of tricky or risky because I'm going to be doing several things without being able to check each step. Usually I like to check each step to make sure that it is what I think it is. But I'm going to have to do this with several steps in a row before I can actually find out if this worked. So let's hope it works. So for word, part of speech, and tags, if POS, part of speech, is noun, 2 capital N's is how these nouns are going to be tagged. Yep, thank you, Bianca, for sharing that link. There's a lot of great tutorials with TextBlob. Alison Parrish is a programmer whose work I use a lot and admire a lot, and she has some really great tutorials in using TextBlob for part of speech extraction. So let's just let's keep going here. So I'll make a noun count equals, let's make it generic, just a plain counter. So noun count is 0 to begin with, and now I'm going to go through all of the tags, and if that, as it runs through each word, if that word happens to be a noun, then we'll just say noun count plus equals 1, which is going to add 1 to the noun count. Or just to make it more explicit, you could say noun count equals noun count plus 1. And this should give me all the nouns by the end, okay? So this one is not going to give me the noun density yet, but it's going to be close. Okay, so this is good because this is an error that you may have gotten if you tried to run this earlier. And this is what I need to do here, nltk.download. And this is one of those errors that looks really scary because it's like all this text and all this color, but it's actually very helpful because right here it says, hey, you need to do this. I couldn't find whatever that yellow text is, average perceptron tagger. So you need to do things. You need to import an LTK. and you need to use NLTK to download the averaged perceptron tagger. So great, so that's the actual code I need to run. I just copied that code, and I'm going to add it up here to my importing. So I've got, the same way that NLTK is downloading punct, I'm going to also have it download averaged perceptron tagger. So that should work now. Let's see. There we go. Except it's returning 0. Okay, so this is clearly not what I intended, so I'm going to hit stop. I don't want it. No reason to let it finish if it's wrong. I wonder if I can't use is. Sometimes I get confused about when I can use is and not use is. Let's try equals. Let's see if we get a better number here. Or if we get an actual number. There we go. So there's an actual number. That's more like what I expected. And as you can see, it's taking it a lot more processing to actually work through each of these. I probably won't let this one finish either. No, I should. I'm going to let this one finish, just so I have these numbers. Because they might be, useful overall, although what's really interesting isn't the raw number of nouns, but the noun density. Since each of these texts is a different length, I'm not necessarily interested yet in, the number by itself may just vary depending on how long the actual text is. Thumbs up. I don't know. I always think I'm going to come up with a clever reaction emoji, then it just ends up being a thumbs up because I can't think of what else to do. But thank you for that. Yeah, there's lots of good stuff. If you find any tutorials like that are helpful. And also the other thing is like, let's see. Take a look at this. The other thing that I find, when you end up doing this is like you have to know what code the tagger is going to be using for each part of speech. So yeah, this is a good reference for those. Even if you've got basically your code figured out, just knowing what text string to look for is going to make a big difference. Okay, great. So I've got all these, and again, this is just the raw noun count. So not super interesting yet, but nouns, raw, call them raw nouns. And looks okay. I could just, now that I'm pretty confident that I'm getting these in the right order, I could just have my code print out numbers line by line, but I'm going to keep doing that step just to kind of give myself a chance to error check as I go. Okay, so let's actually figure out the noun density now. I could probably do the same. Well, I'll do it here in code. So my noun count is that. My word count is up here, so I can get that line from when I did the word count with. No, it was down here when I did the word count with TextBlob. And just for consistency, I'm going to rename this. I'm going to call this word count now, since I already have word count. Since I already have noun count, I'll call this one word count. And then so I'm going to say noun density equals noun count divided by, this is going to be a percentage of words that are nouns. So it's going to be noun count divided by word count times 100 to give me a percentage. And this will also be a very long float, I think. So like a number. But I think that's all right because I suspect these will be very close to each other, and so I want to be able to capture that difference even with that closeness. So let's see if this gives me, okay, great. So this is telling me like 13.6%, 13.6 blah, blah, blah percent for this essay called All Things. Yeah, see in 13.5, like these are very close, so I want to be able to capture those differences. So this is still going to take a while. The time-consuming part is the tagging, not the calculation. But you know, it'll take it that time to get through here. So hope everyone's having an okay day. It's nice and sunny in my backyard. Warm, but not too warm. I think I'll take a walk after this. So, I mean, I know it's a terrible. The world is terrible right now, but it is springtime, and it's a nice spring, and I'm enjoying seeing all the flowers, and that helps me mentally, you know, seeing flowers and seeing things blooming and watching them progress over a few days. It's pretty. I don't know, it's nice. It's a nice way to pace your time and spend your time and think about time in terms of what's blooming next, and you know those rhythms are a little bit slower, but still surprisingly fast. Some of them. All right, we done? Almost done. I have not seen any squirrels today at all. I've just realized, and I'm not worried about them. I'm just a little confused why I haven't seen any squirrels. Like, I don't know where they are. I mean, I made some adjustments to the bird feeder to see if I could, and so I'm curious to see if that will keep them out of the bird seed. I refilled it and lowered the dome thing, but so far I have not seen any potential customers other than actual birds, which is great. But I'm glad the birds are still able to get into it. Okay, so noun density. Okay, so there's a pretty minor range of adjusting within this, but kind of, yeah, I mean, you could definitely still see a trend, or you could see the potential of a trend existing, but we'll see. So what I would be doing if I were you at this stage is, now that as you start to get all these numbers, start looking for correlations. So start seeing if the year, like this is what Alexandra was looking at, like seeing if the year of composition has any particular trend with respect to one of the other things here. So does the noun density increase over time or decrease over time? You could also find out about, like, now that we have a list of all the nouns, like we can identify all the nouns, we could also figure out what is the most longest noun, like what is the most the longest adjective. Things like that can also be done within this thing here. I could probably show you that too, but I think sentiment might be a bit more interesting. So I'm going to move into, I'll show you how to do sentiment analysis with TextBlob, and then if I have time, then I'll go back into the feature extraction for parts of speech. Okay, so within this blob, we've got sentences, and sentences can have a sentiment, and sentiment is a score on a numeric scale. So I think you can actually calculate sentiment for any scope within a blob, so like per word or per sentence or per text. So I'm going to try that. I don't know if this will work, but I mean, I don't know if it'll be meaningful or not. So let's find out. I probably am going to need to download something else with NLTK. Oh yeah, no, it is. It's working. Great. So what I'm getting here is like an average sentiment for the entire corpus. So I mean, for the entire text. So for this, all things, the polarity, that's the sentimentality of it. Like like a 1 is the highest, and then -1 is the lowest, I think, or maybe it just goes down to 0. All these are above 0. It looks like. So those are, I think, calculated as just the generic overall for that book. Kind of interesting, and all sort of low, I guess, but that's all right. So subjectivity is whether it's like how specific is it? Like how personal is this particular thing, which isn't useful at all really for large text. So really in terms of sentiment, I'm really just interested in polarity as a general view of a particular work. And so if I want to access that, I can do that. I think if I just do the parenthesis, the square bracket 0, I think I will capture just the first part of that tuple. I think, let's find out if it'll let me do that. Yeah, okay, so this is just that first number without the label, and that's maybe interesting, I guess, I don't know. So I will add that to my metadata. And for this one, I'll call it sentiment polarity. I think sentiment is probably more useful if you see it as a thing that changes across the work. At least that was Matthew Jocker's argument in Bestseller Code, that you could use the changes in sentiment throughout a book to approximate plot points and plot directions. So that's probably more of a useful way to do that. That's a little tricky to get into our particular metadata here because we'd have to have like an actual sparkline graph or something. But just for now, like you can get a sense here. And again, these are numbers, and so whenever you have a series of numbers, you can start looking for correlations, and this might be that. Now, if I realized I wanted actually the other number, the subjectivity, that would be labeled at position 1. So if I do this again with the 1 here, this is going to give me the second of those pairs. So this is the subjectivity of each of these texts. And these are all pretty much right in the middle. They're not very interesting in terms of that. Like they're not going to be, I doubt this will be useful or interesting, but it might be for your text. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do it, which is with that. Sentiment. Subjectivity. Okay, great. So I've got lots of cells here, lots of rows, lots of numbers. Okay, so has anyone requested anything? Okay, great. I haven't seen any requests coming in Discord yet. But if there's something you'd like for me to show you in today's stream, I'm going to be wrapping up soon, so get your request in now. Otherwise, if you request something for a stream, I can do it Wednesday. So the next thing I was kind of curious about is I could do syllable count. I'd have to use the pronouncing library. It's a bit much at this point. That's going to take me more than 5 minutes basically to get that going. I don't know, let's just get something like kind of strange. Like let's just get the longest noun. So of the nouns here, let's just figure out what is the longest and then have that. So that won't be numeric information, but might be revealing, might be something. Okay, so this is my noun code. Okay, I did change this one. I'm going to switch this one back. Let's do this. So this is not calculating. Find the longest noun. I don't know why that would be. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but that's all right. So this will take a bit more. Actually, this might be useful because I'll have to write an actual sort function. And I might have to remember how to do a custom sort function. So instead of noun count, let's just do a list of all the nouns. We'll initiate that as a list. And so instead of adding 1 to a number, we're going to append that here. No, you know what? Actually, we're going to make nouns into a dictionary, and we're going to, if that part of speech that I find is a noun, then I'm going to add. Well, actually, I'm going to find out. You know what? I'm just going to do this in kind of an ugly way, kind of a hacky way, but I think it'll work. Where I'm going to find out how long this noun is, and then I'm going to stick it into this entry, and this will actually be this is lazy coding. It's going to be rewriting entries if they already exist. If I were being more careful, I would have it check to see if it exists first and only then calculate it. But this is going to happen so fast anyway, it's not really going to make a difference in terms of what Python is doing. So now I'm going to say noun. Oops, don't copy that. So I'm going to say noun word, and so this is going to put an entry for this word into the nouns dictionary, and then the value for that entry is going to be the length of that. So just like that. Okay, so I don't need this code here. What I'm going to try to do then is sort this by value. And this is one of those things I always just Google, so I will show you my process here, right? So Python sort dictionary by value. I'm not the first person to have this question. So I'm just going on the first result here. Okay, that makes sense, but I kind of like the Stack Overflow, not that one. The Stack Overflow organization makes it pretty easy to see, because you can pretty quickly find the best answer. Yeah, and like this is an answer I don't actually understand, so it's fine to just copy and paste that, but I might want to find another answer that I do understand. Okay, so this is an example. So this is a dictionary before it's been sorted, and then A is going to be a dictionary that has been run through this particular process, and then it's going to print that as a series of, why is it printing it as tuples? I guess that's okay. So let's do that. This works for me. So we're using the sorted function. Sorted is a built-in Python thing that lets you customize a sort. So let's do it like that. So we'll say, just make our names a bit more explicit here. So sorted nouns equals sorted nouns. Okay, so dot items is going to be getting each entry, and then the key is the value there, I guess. I don't know. And so if we do it this way, then if we sort this in ascending order by length, I guess that's what's going to be happening. And then the longest noun will be the last one. So to get the last of something, there is a slice method you can do in Python with a -1 index. -1 should just be the last one. Now I believe this is going to be a tuple, but let's just see if it even kind of makes sense. Oh, okay. Well, I don't know if you can see what happened here, but what happened is that because I didn't clean out the header and what do you call it, the preamble part and then the license part, that's been included in the text that TextBlob was parsing, and it treated the URLs as nouns. And so what it's given me here is the longest noun in each of these is that URL, which is kind of annoying. But this is what I get for not bothering to clean up my corpus on the front end. Now that's an interesting one. That's a long list of asterisks, and that ended up being the longest noun there. But clearly this output is not meaningful at this point. Obviously I should go in and clean those out. That would be the easiest way to do that. I could write some code that would avoid those sections, but it would be easier just to go through each of those and edit those. I'm not going to do this on the stream because it'll take me a few minutes, and it's not very interesting. Yeah. I know I just saw your comment, Alyssa. It is good that it's daylight savings time. We get more daylight, and we need all the daylight we can get these days. Okay, well I'm going to wrap it up here in a minute. So if you have any last questions or comments or whatever, put them into Discord or the Twitch stream. And if you have any requests for what to do next time, let me know. I can do more with sentiment analysis, and I can do more with. You know what? I haven't done topic modeling yet, so I think I'll probably do topic modeling on Wednesday. or at least I mean I introduced it a while ago, but I don't know if I gave you all like a working sample of a Python notebook doing topic modeling. So I will look into that for Wednesday. I think some of you might be interested in that. I'll also take a look at your corpora and see if there are particular scenarios that you're going to be encountering and try to create some tutorials for that. Or find them if they already exist. So, all right, well, if you do have a question and you don't have a chance to get it in, then you know where to find me, how to get in touch. I'd be happy to hear from you. We'd love to hear from you. We'll probably plan on doing another Zoom conference or something else where I can actually hear from you in you know visual terms or at least audio terms. Maybe Friday or Monday, depending on what other things I come up with for tutorials. So I hope that was helpful. That was the notebook here now has several different examples in it, and you can use any or all of those for your code. If you've got at the point where you've got your corpus and you're trying to figure out what to do with it, this is probably a good step, or these are probably several good steps to start building different columns of numbers and then start looking for patterns. I guess I didn't show you this, but because I assumed you kind of know how to do it, but just in case you don't, what you should be doing then is figuring out, you can do graphs basically. So if we wanted to figure out sentiment, you can do these right in the Google Spreadsheets if you're using Google Spreadsheets. So if you select a section of like a column of numbers and you click insert and then chart, it'll give you it'll give you these as a chart. And as you can see, these are just kind of, they essentially look random to me, but you can try different column types. And then you can add other columns and see if there's a correlation between them. But pretty easy to play with in Google Spreadsheets. And that's what I would recommend doing, is just essentially play with it. Okay, great. Well, if you have questions, let me know, reach out. And then otherwise, I will be doing another stream on Wednesday. Hope you have a good afternoon. See you later.